The room is heavy with silence as Daniel's voice trembles, barely above a whisper. What if I'm the reason Dad left? His words hang in the air, fragile and full of raw vulnerability, like glass about to shatter. For a moment, the world seems to stop, and his mother's heart aches at the pain behind his confession. She had always known her son struggled with his father's departure, but hearing him say it, believing himself to be the cause, cuts deeper than anything she could have imagined. Her hands tremble slightly as she reaches for him, pulling him close, her voice a steady anchor as she whispers, "This was never your fault, Daniel." But in the tightness of his grip, she feels something else. The weight of guilt he can't shake. The quiet devastation of a child who believes he wasn't enough to keep his family whole. The mother's own tears threaten to spill, not just for him, but for the unspoken ache that lies in the depths of her own heart. What happened between them and his father isn't just a story of loss. It's a fracture, a wound that refuses to heal. In this moment, with her arms around him, something shifts. It's not just the bond between mother and son, but something more profound, more painful, as if the very air between them has changed. The comfort she offers him doesn't just ease his pain, it stirs something deep within her, a connection that's more than a mother's love, something both familiar and strange at once. Daniel's eyes are wide, brimming with unshed tears, his voice breaking under the weight of an unbearable thought. What if I'm the reason Dad left? The words seem to hang in the room like a dark cloud, suffocating the air between them. He looks at his mother with a mixture of confusion and dread, as if searching for some sign that he's wrong, some flicker of hope that this is just a misunderstanding. But deep down, he believes it. He believes that somehow in some way, his own actions or flaws are the reason his father is no longer there. And that belief is unraveling him, thread by fragile thread. For a moment, the mother is speechless, her own heart breaking at the sight of her son, this tender, innocent boy, shouldering a burden no child should ever have to carry. Her instinct is to wrap him in her arms, but she knows she has to do more than just hold him. She needs to lift him out of this dark place he's wandered into, to show him that his pain, though real, is misplaced. She swallows hard, forcing the lump in her throat down, and with a voice that shakes but is determined, she responds, "This was never your fault, Daniel. You didn't do anything wrong." Her words are simple, but they carry the weight of years of unspoken truths. She pulls him closer, running her fingers through his hair in a slow, comforting rhythm, trying to infuse him with the peace she herself is struggling to find. She speaks again, this time more softly. "Your father's choice had nothing to do with you. You are enough. You've always been enough." Daniel trembles in her embrace, the sobs he's been holding back now breaking free. Each tear feels like a release, his body shaking with the grief of a child who feels abandoned, rejected, unworthy. And as she holds him, she too feels the sting of something deeper, a pain she's been burying for so long. His father's absence has left a void, one that neither of them has fully come to terms with. The mother is struggling with her own sorrow, but this moment, her son's pain, forces her to confront it head on. It's almost as if she's not just comforting Daniel, but also grieving the loss of a life that might have been, of a family that could have been whole. And yet, as the seconds stretch on, something extraordinary happens. In comforting him, she feels a subtle shift, a deeper connection that is at once overwhelming and unfamiliar. It's not just a mother's love she feels. It's a kind of bond that transcends what she's ever known. It's as though their souls, bound by grief and love, are somehow closer, more intertwined. For a fleeting moment, the weight of that connection almost threatens to swallow her, but she steadies herself, unwilling to break in front of him. She's his rock, his safe place in the storm. But in the quiet, after the sobs have subsided and Daniel's breathing has steadied, she realizes something. Their shared grief has forged a deeper understanding between them. It's not just the bond of mother and son anymore. It's something more complicated, something both painful and beautiful. And she isn't sure if she's ready to face what that means. As Daniel slowly pulls away from his mother's embrace, his body still trembling from the outpouring of emotion, something in the air between them feels different. The silence that follows isn't just a quiet pause. It's heavy, laden with unspoken words and emotions that linger, refusing to dissipate. The mother watches her son, his tear-streaked face softening as he regains some semblance of calm, but there's something in the way he holds himself now, a subtle shift that unsettles her. He's no longer the boy who needed comforting. There's an unspoken understanding between them. Something deeper, something more raw, and the mother can't quite grasp it. She stays close, her hands still resting lightly on his shoulders, but her mind is far away, grappling with an unfamiliar sensation that seems to pulse in the space between them. It's the same sense of warmth that filled her when she held him tight, the same bond that felt so instinctive, so right. But there's a strange undercurrent to it now. She can't explain it, can't put words to it, but it's there, undeniable. It's as if the act of comforting him has somehow crossed an invisible line, shifting their relationship into territory she never expected. It's not just her role as a mother anymore. There's something more profound at play, a connection that transcends the traditional bond between mother and son. For a moment, she feels as though she's standing at the edge of something she can't see but knows is there, something that feels just out of reach, yet so overwhelmingly present. It's a sensation both terrifying and beautiful, and she's not sure how to handle it. Her love for Daniel has always been pure, unconditional, but now, in the aftermath of this emotionally charged moment, she's aware of a complexity she can't ignore. The intimacy of the moment, the shared grief, has somehow brought them closer in a way that feels almost too intense, too intimate for the roles they've always played in each other's lives. Her mind races, trying to make sense of it all. Was it the rawness of his confession, the depth of his pain, that made her feel this connection so strongly? Or is it something deeper, something about their shared vulnerability in this space, in this time of loss and healing? She doesn't know. What she does know is that the mother-son relationship she once thought was so simple, so defined, is suddenly anything but. The lines are blurring, and she feels a pull towards him that is more than maternal love. It's a bond she doesn't know how to define, but one that feels almost otherworldly. Her heart aches as she tries to suppress this confusion, but it lingers, refusing to let her go. She wishes she could push it aside, focus on being the mother Daniel needs right now, but she can't. The sensation is like a thread that's woven itself into the fabric of their connection, and no matter how hard she tries to ignore it, it's there, tugging at her, making her question everything she thought she knew about the love she feels for her son. As she looks into Daniel's eyes, she realizes that in this moment, she's not just comforting him. She's confronting something within herself, something she doesn't fully understand, something that feels like a door opening into a new chapter of their relationship, a chapter she's not sure she's ready to walk through. And yet, a part of her knows that they can't go back. Their bond has changed, shifted into something both fragile and powerful. And the narrator, caught in the undertow of her own emotions, is left wondering what this new, uncharted territory means for them both. The next morning, the world outside is quiet, as if it too feels the weight of the night that passed. The early light filters through the kitchen window, soft and diffused, casting gentle shadows on the walls. The hum of the coffee machine, the clink of ceramic mugs, and the rustle of toast in the toaster are the only sounds in the room, mundane, ordinary, but somehow comforting in their normalcy. It's a peaceful morning, a stark contrast to the storm of emotions they'd weathered the night before. Daniel sits at the table, his posture more relaxed than it had been in days, his gaze softer, as if the rawness of his confession has lifted something heavy from his shoulders. The tension that had gripped him, his belief that he was somehow responsible for his father's departure, seems to have dissipated, replaced by a fragile peace. His face, though still marked by the traces of last night's tears, is more at ease. He picks at his breakfast, the silence between them now not one of discomfort, but of quiet understanding. The mother watches him, her gaze lingering on his face, tracing the familiar contours that have been a part of her life for so long. She's struck by how different he seems now. There's a subtle shift in him, a quiet strength that wasn't there before. It's as if the weight of his guilt, the burden he'd been carrying, has been lifted, at least for now. And yet, as she looks at him, she can't shake the feeling that something has fundamentally changed between them. The connection that grew out of their shared vulnerability last night still lingers, like an invisible thread between them. It's not uncomfortable, but it's undeniable. There's a warmth, a closeness that feels more intimate than what they've shared before, and though she tries to push it aside, she can't ignore it. She stirs her coffee absently, lost in thought. The moment is serene, but beneath the surface, something unsettles her. The comfort of the routine, the mundane nature of their breakfast, is grounding, yes, but it feels like a thin veneer over the deeper, more complex emotions that neither of them is ready to fully confront. The silence is companionable, but there's a tension in the air, a subtle heaviness that neither is willing to acknowledge outright. They are two people who have just navigated a storm together, but the storm is far from over. The mother wonders if Daniel feels it too, the shift in their dynamic, the way their relationship has subtly transformed. She's not sure how to name what's between them now, but it's there, palpable in the way he looks at her, in the way she holds him, in the way they sit together in this quiet, shared space. Daniel breaks the silence first, his voice small, almost hesitant. "I'm glad you're here, Mom." The words, though simple, carry weight. It's as if, in the stillness of the morning, he's acknowledging not just her presence, but the strength of the bond they share. And in that moment, the mother realizes that this is a turning point, not just in Daniel's journey, but in hers as well. She has always been his protector, his guide, but now, as they sit together in this quiet, the boundaries between them have blurred. They are no longer just mother and son. They are two people who have faced something together, something deeply personal, and have emerged from it changed. But as the warmth of the morning settles around them, the mother can't shake the feeling that there's more to unravel, more emotions to confront. She knows that Daniel still carries a quiet sorrow, that the pain of his father's absence won't disappear overnight. And for herself, the strange sense of connection that began the night before continues to pull at her. Like a thread she's afraid to follow, but can't quite resist. As she watches him take another bite of his breakfast, she wonders if they are truly at peace, or if this calm is just the eye of a storm that has yet to fully pass. The breakfast table has become a space of quiet reflection, the sound of clinking plates and the low murmur of the clocks ticking filling the empty spaces between words. Daniel, his posture more relaxed than it's been in days, seems content with the peace that has settled over them. He picks at his food, lost in thought, while his mother watches him carefully, her own mind churning with the complexities of their unspoken bond. The morning calm, though a welcome reprieve, feels delicate, as if any shift could unravel the fragile peace they've worked so hard to establish. But just as the stillness begins to settle in, Daniel speaks, his voice small but heavy with an unexpected weight. "Do you think things could have been different?" His words pierce the quiet like a sharp breath, catching his mother off guard. It's not a question she was prepared for, and for a moment, the world outside their little bubble seems to fall away. The question lingers in the air between them, its implications stretching far beyond its simple phrasing. Could have been different? The mother feels the familiar ache in her chest, the old wounds reopening at the thought of what might have been. She had tried so hard to convince Daniel that his father's departure was not his fault, that there was nothing he could have done to stop it. But now, in the stillness of this moment, the question stirs something deeper. Could things have been different? Could the life they had once imagined, one of family unity, shared laughter, and simple joys, have been saved? And if so, why wasn't it? The words echo in her mind, pulling her in different directions. Part of her wants to reassure him again, to say that there was no way to change the past, that they have to move forward, not backward. But the other part, the part that has been holding her own grief at bay, wonders the same thing. Could things have been different? She had been so focused on keeping him safe, on shielding him from pain, that she'd never allowed herself the space to question the choices that led them here. For a brief, fleeting moment, she considers telling him the truth, that maybe, in some quiet corner of her heart, she's wondered the same thing. But she stops herself. She can't burden him with her doubts, not now, not when he's finally starting to heal. So instead, she breathes deeply, pushing the question to the back of her mind, and looks at him, her heart aching with a mixture of love and sorrow. She reaches out to touch his hand gently, trying to ground them both in the present, trying to steer them back to this moment of fragile peace. Daniel, she begins, her voice steady but soft, the past is something we can't change. All we have is now. But even as she says the words, she knows they're not enough. The question still hangs in the air, unanswered, its weight too heavy to dismiss. As Daniel looks up at her, his eyes searching for something, reassurance, understanding, maybe even the truth, she knows that this conversation, this question, is not over. The past is never truly gone, and for all their efforts to move forward, the echo of what might have been will linger between them. The question of whether things could have been different is not one that can be answered easily, and perhaps it's a question neither of them is ready to confront fully. But for now, it's there, quietly gnawing at the edges of their peace, a reminder that the past is never as distant as they would like it to be. And as the scene ends, the mother is left with a bittersweet sense of uncertainty. There is no resolution, no easy answers. Just the weight of an unanswered question, one that will continue to haunt her and Daniel for days to come. The audience, too, is left wondering, can they ever truly move forward from the shadows of the past, or will the question of what could have been forever alter the course of their future?